Thanks for tuning in to more Rutgers football talk on the Lads Football Network as the Rutgers Scarlet Knights come up with an historic opening week win over Temple, the largest margin of victory over an FBS opponent for the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Week one couldn't have gotten any better, or could it have been any better, Ryan?
I don't think so, Greg. I think everything you're a Rutgers fan, almost everything you wanted to see, you saw. You saw big plays from the offense. You saw the Johnny Langan package still works. You saw a defense that forced takeaways. You saw special teams excellence. You saw everything. You saw a team fight back when they faced a little adversity there in the third quarter when Temple made its run. I think you saw everything you wanted to see. The only thing is maybe Noah Vedral set off some alarms. He didn't look good, but you saw him do it last year, so you know he could do it. I think as far as a Rutgers fan, I thought it was probably the best case scenario season opener.
Yeah, I tell you what I'd like to see Vedral do a lot more, and I remember saying this last year, and immediately, I didn't even think of talking about it in our preview shows because I had forgotten about it, but immediately as I started watching the game, I'm like, he's not doing it again, which is early in the game, he has to hold on to the football on the RPOs or the whatever those options are. Hold on to the football the first time or two. Let the defense think that you're going to hold on to the football. He doesn't. He seems to wait until like the third or fourth quarter. Then he decides to hold on to the football. If you hold on to the football early, now you've got the defense questioning things. I think if he does that a little bit earlier in these games, I think it helps the offense a little bit more, the running game a little bit more.
And that's an interesting point. I didn't notice that. I'll keep an eye out for that. I'm sure defensives have noticed that if he's more willing to give it up early. That's certainly interesting tell there. And look, Rutgers has a bunch of running backs, so he could probably give it up early, and it'll still be a different feel to the RPO every time because, you know, Young doesn't run the ball the same way as Pacheco, who doesn't run the ball the same way as, I'm going to pronounce his name wrong. I was going to try to get through this the whole time without saying Manangaya, the guy with 2 touchdowns now. So it's a name every Rutgers fan has to know. So I should get to know it.
Well, look, and you said Vedral's passing definitely a concern. We talked about that in the preseason. I remember talking to Richie about that of Rivals and saying this was one of the things I was concerned about because you heard Greg Schiano in the pressers not really giving a glowing endorsement about how Vedral had been looking during camp, and it showed again in the first game. He was just very inconsistent. And here's another thing. We love Gleason if you're a Rutgers fan. How can you not? And I'm not trying to blame Gleason here, but what I want to see more of is, again, early on, I mean, it seemed like it took them forever to throw the football downhill to Bo Melton. I mean, everything to Bo Melton is like at the line of scrimmage. He's the best receiver on the team. I don't mind a couple of, line of scrimmage passes, but you have to, again, open up the offense. Throw the ball down the field a couple times to Bo Melton. He's just too good. And at some point, they have to start incorporating the downfield passing game. Not a lot, because Vedral's not really good at it, but a little bit earlier in the game.
And my feeling watching that game was Rutgers knows they're the better team. They're not going to take any risks, throw an interception downfield. They're going to not play it safe, but they're going to make smart throws. They wanted to let their talent win the game. I think you'll see a different Vedral, a different Gleason when Rutgers is an underdog in a game, which, surprisingly, they're not this week.
Yeah, and here's some interesting trends regarding that, because it's still about a 2.5 point spread. And spreads 2.5 point spreads can change quickly over the last 48 hours of a college football game. So keep this in mind. If Syracuse becomes either a pick or a favorite in the game, as a head coach at Rutgers, Greg Schiano is 16-3-1 against the spread as a non-conference pick or a dog. So how about that? But if Rutgers becomes a 3-point favorite or more, you turn it around to Syracuse, they're 1-12 against the spread in their last 13 as dogs of 3 or more points in first of back-to-back games. So if you're a Rutgers fan, you either want the spread to be 3 or Pick'em or Syracuse. Anything in between might not be a good thing, and we'll get into that game a little bit later on, but I figured I'd throw that in there because you kind of set me up for it.
Yeah, I don't know. You and gamblers buy into that stuff more than I do. I don't know what Greg Schiano doing his record with like Logan Ryan and Mike Teal and Eric LeGrand has anything to do with the Rutgers-Syracuse matchup. But I know people love that stuff, even though it's 10 years ago data.
All right, now, the big story was Gavin Wimsatt, and it came about at the last minute before the game and then really exploded after the game. Whether or not he's going to play this year, and nobody knows, but I think this is a great deal for Rutgers for a variety of reasons. And I think one is the obvious, and that is it's going to push Vedral. It's going to be, all right, now you knew you were not going to be benched by the guys they have on, 2 and 3. They're just not. I don't care how much Schiano talks up the backups. Those guys are never coming in unless Vedral gets hurt. So now that's not the case. If Vedral does not play really good football this year, there's always going to be the chance, 2, 3, 4 weeks down the line that, hey, maybe we'll bring the kid in.
I got a couple things to say on this. One, no one loves a quarterback controversy as much as Greg Schiano. The guy has never, for all his positives, has never been able to pick a quarterback and stick with him. He's never been able to do it. Early years at Rutgers, Ryan Cubitt was the quarterback. He was the offensive coordinator's son. He got benched for Ted Trump, who was a bartender on campus. They had Ryan Hart. He benched him for Mike Teal. He had Tom Savage. He benched him for Chase Dodd. He never able to just stick with a quarterback. He's always looking for the greener grass. Sometimes it works. I mean, Teal obviously had a great career. Sometimes it doesn't. They ran off Tom Savage, who was the best, most talented quarterback the program ever had. So I would worry about that a little. Like, is he going to be tempted to play Wimsatt? It's a great idea if he's there just learning, sitting on the bench. If you actually put him in a game, I don't know. We've seen too many freshmen come to Rutgers and struggle right away. Gary Nova comes to mind, and that's after coming in the January, having a whole spring and a whole training camp. Gavin Wimsatt was playing Kentucky Catholic last week, and now he's going to be playing against Michigan and Ohio State. That's a huge learning curve. I don't know that it's fair to the kid. I know the fans are dying for it. I don't know. I probably wouldn't do it. I'd use it as a learning curve. And then I'll give you another point. I don't know the kid. This is pure speculation. What if the kid wants to play? What if he sits and he's frustrated, and him unrolling early means he ends up transferring. Transfers are the Wild West, right? If he's frustrated that he's not playing, I left high school to sit on the bench here. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of messiness with a high school kid coming right out of high school to play at Rutgers in the middle of the season. I don't know. Greg Schiano is an excellent communicator. All his players say he knows tells you exactly what the expectation is. I just hope him, Wimsatt's parents, Wimsatt's high school coaches, his advisors, everybody in his ear, I hope they're on the same page.
I think the best case scenario is that Vedral plays better than he did last year. He stays healthy. And at some point, Wimsatt has an opportunity to learn the playbook and learn the college game a little bit. About 5 or 6 weeks from now, he has up to 4 games of eligibility. So go ahead then, game 7, game 8, game 9, give him a few snaps, make him feel good. Your hard work is paid off. We're going to give you a couple of series. You obviously are the number 1 quarterback in 2022, and everybody's happy. And that's the way I think it's actually going to play out. Again, as long as Vedral plays well and he doesn't get hurt.
Yeah, and as long as that's okay with Wimsatt, as long as
I think he
understands that. Yeah. You never know with kids. Kids expect more and more. And again, I don't know Gavin Wimsatt at all, but I know college. I covered college athletics for a long time, and I know that the expectations to play immediately for freshmen get more and more by the year. So long as that's okay with them, sure, that makes a lot of sense. The other thing to keep in mind is I don't think 4 games really matters. I know Rutgers fans are like, oh, let's preserve his red shirt. If the kid left high school in the middle of the season, he isn't planning to be here for 4 or 5 years.
Sure.
Where you're very worried about maintaining him. He's not going to be your redshirt senior quarterback. He left high school early. So he's planning he's got his eyes on the NFL.
And I think if you're a Rutgers fan, that's what you want him to, because that means he's going to turn out to be pretty good, even if it's only for a couple of years. But that's the way it is, no question about it. That's the lay of the land, and that's why it's very important for Rutgers as soon as next year at the latest to go out and get another quarterback, because this kid's only going to be around for a few years. But again, we hope that's actually the case. Okay. A couple other things from the game and into this matchup with Syracuse. The special teams was absolutely phenomenal. And Crookshank is a touchdown waiting to happen every time he touches the ball. We didn't even see Youngblood get an opportunity yet. But Corsack, too. I mean, I don't know how this kid doesn't become an NFL punter. 67-yard punt. The special teams set everything up early in the football game. And then the defense was absolutely fantastic, too. And I think that even if the offense struggles a little bit because of Vedral and maybe the offensive line, I have a little bit more faith now than I did before the Temple game that the defense is going to be a little bit better and special teams is just going to be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, Greg Schiano, a hallmark of Greg Schiano teams is great special teams. I cover football day in, day out, for 10 years now, and every coach says, special teams, especially Joe Judge with the Giants. Special teams wins games, and I've seen very few coaches practice what they preach as much as Greg Schiano. His teams have literally won games based on block kicks and return kicks and whatnot. So I would expect Rutgers special teams to be probably the best in the Big Ten.
Okay, now as far as the matchup, it's been the old days since Rutgers and Syracuse were real rivals. That was the Big East, the old Big East days. So they're back playing against each other again. I'm a little bit concerned with this game. Now, if you look at this, even more so than how I felt last week. Because it wasn't that Syracuse's offense did anything, because it didn't. The passing game was non-existent. It was all about the running game. They got this second-year freshman, Sean Tucker, very good running back. Probably just as advanced as Pacheco, maybe even more so, very fast. He had a nice year last year. He had a big game against Ohio. That's their offense right now. They want to run the football. That scares me because Temple had zero running game, and they're not going to run the ball at all this year. They got nothing in the run department. We know Rutgers' defense, the biggest struggles for them last year, and really, even when Schiano's defenses were at their best, it was always the run defense because they were always much smaller and quicker players. So this is what worries me the most about this matchup is if Syracuse runs the ball, gains over 200 yards on the ground, and that really puts Rutgers behind the eight ball defensively. That's where I'm a little bit concerned with.
No, I totally agree. And that's where I think if that happens and Syracuse is killing clock, that's where I think a lot's on Sean Gleason to come up with some quick strike offensive plays for sure in retaliation. But no, I think you're absolutely right. You hit a great nail on the head. The Rutgers is always smaller and faster on defense. They like that. They're favored. They like to bring that safety-sized linebacker down to the second level and to the line of scrimmage. That gives them trouble in the Big Ten. It shouldn't give them trouble against Syracuse. I mean, Syracuse should not be much bigger and stronger than Rutgers. That should not be the case. They have a good running game. Their offensive linemen should not be overpowering Rutgers front seven. If they are, that's a very alarming sign going forward.
And look, Syracuse does have all five of their offensive linemen returning. They have over 120 career starts returning on the line. And you saw them with 283 rushing yards against Ohio. But again, that's Ohio. As you mentioned, it's totally true. You cannot be playing defense like Ohio if you expect to compete against the Big Ten this year. I'm also a little bit concerned with the fact that Rutgers is a road favorite for the first time since 2015. This is not a spot they're used to. Is actually getting respect as they go on the road. We'll see how they handle that.
Yeah, I talked to Vedral before the season about that, and he made a point that, look, we're going to get just like everybody in the Big Ten, we've earned enough respect now where we're going to get every team's good punch. So they're aware of that. They're very aware that they don't get to sneak up on anybody. Last year, they snuck up on Michigan, took them to triple overtime. They snuck up on Maryland. They snuck up on Purdue. They won't get to do that. Obviously, Syracuse, Rutgers, for people who don't know, this is a very meaningful matchup because both schools like to claim themselves New York City's college football team. They both like to recruit the same areas. So this game, this result, the winning team come Sunday will be emailing all the recruits and saying, hey, just see how we beat so-and-so? Keep that in mind, in the next 2 months or so. We're the program on the rise.
Yeah, especially for Dino Babers, because he needed the win desperately last week. So that makes them feel good. But their recruiting has been terrible. And if they can somehow win this game against Rutgers of all teams, that could do wonders if Babers keeps his job, he goes out on the recruiting trail, and all of a sudden can steal a couple of recruits from Rutgers. So, yeah, this is a big matchup, definitely because of that. Also, just quickly for Syracuse, as good as the Scarlet Knights special teams is, Syracuse has a Groza award-winning place kicker. So if the game comes down to place kicking, Syracuse has got the major edge in the place kicking department. But Syracuse did lose their punter, their top kick returner, and their special teams coach coming into this season. So we'll see what happens in this matchup. Syracuse has all three super seniors returning on the defensive line, including McKinley Williams, and all four starters returning at linebacker, including third-team ACC Mikel Jones. The strength of Syracuse's defense is in their front seven. They lost two key third-round NFL draft picks in the secondary, including Andre Cisco to Jacksonville, and that's where I'd like to see Rutgers take advantage a little bit in the passing game.
Yeah, for sure. And it can't just be Melton. Shameen Jones has to get involved. Crookshank has to get involved. It can't just be Bo Melton. At times last year, it felt like it was just Bo Melton. It can't just be Bo Melton.
Yeah, Shaheem Jones had the one opportunity early and the ball went right through his hands, and that's not good. I mean, because psychologically, he's been very inconsistent, and a lot of people were expecting a big season from him. And so far, nothing after the first game. So I think they got to get him the ball real fast, get some confidence going. And then, like you said, I mean, I don't mind Crookshank catching the football and getting the ball because he's explosive, but they've talked about them having a deeper receiving unit. Well, and definitely the tight ends. We need to see more of that. Well, let's see it. Let's see the passing game downfield this week against Syracuse. Not all the line of scrimmage throws that we saw against Temple.
Yep.
All right, what do you think? Prediction.
I'll take Rutgers. 27-21.
Okay. And, I'm worried about this game, but I'll say Rutgers wins a very close game. I'll call it something like 23-21, something like that. Really close. Okay, that'll wrap it up. Now, next week, it's Delaware. So if Rutgers wins, then it's a very dangerous game. If they lose, then there's nothing to look past Delaware because they have to win the game. So, but let's hope it's a win, and let's hope that they have to worry about looking ahead at the Big Ten schedule. That would be a good thing. Ryan, appreciate you taking the time out. You're at, what are you at, Jet Camp?
I'm at Jets practice.
How's everything going down there?
Pretty good.
They let Bless Austin go. The Rutgers guy.
Bless Austin. He's on the Seahawks now, but they still have Tyler Cross
That's true.
for Rutgers.
Okay, not bad. All right, Ryan, appreciate it. We'll talk to you again next week.